All right, cool. Let's jump into it. Where are we at? It's 10:27. So yeah, just sort of seeing the market sort of make a couple of little moves and nothing obviously to note as of this sort of time or time of the day, time of the session anyway. So yeah, let's start off just having a little look at the Aussie, which is holding up very well, all things considered. So obviously we had that big sort of punch up breakout off the CPI the other day. Yesterday it just really sort of I mean, if you look at this, it pretty much just sort of ranged a little bit. I mean, it's quite a tight sort of little thing, but if you consider that's your sort of range through the session yesterday, this is on a 4 hour chart, so it wasn't really doing much through the day. But my sort of takeaway from this is that, as you can see with this fib drawn up here on this move, that the pullbacks were very, very minimal. We weren't sort of seeing like sort of large profit taking coming back down, even to the 38 still considered a decent one, and you could see that it almost sort of line up with these previous highs here. There was not a lot of the market taking profit and going, okay, boom, boom. So what does that do? It forces anybody that wants to get long and wants to get in on this position, they're going to have to pay this top price up here because people aren't, or the market just aren't allowing it to sort of come back down to this cheaper price. And if people are sort of taking positions from these higher levels, well, majority of them aren't just going to be sort of pip traders, of course. I mean, these are the people that are sort of moving markets. And, if they're sort of forced to buy at this position here, well, they're not looking to take profit here necessarily. You would think, okay, look, here's the first move, bang, they take their profit, it just consolidates underneath this known sort of resistance level, and then bang, pop. So we did get a bit of a push out last night, but of course, then we had that sort of US data sort of coming out. And that US data was quite strong for, well, positive for US dollar, of course. So, yeah, obviously that sort of smacked it back down. And, from a technical standpoint, didn't get the sort of solid close. Like if we had a close up here, you'd call that a breakout. But as you can see, it's still really thinking and sort of grinding around this zone here and hasn't managed to sort of close out the top side here. So, I mean, that US data was retail sales, Empire State manufacturing. These things were, some of them were a large miss. Like the manufacturing, negative 4.6 previously, expected negative 3.3. So, still sort of a downside figure, but, not as bad. It came in at plus positive 9.1. Like, that's an incredible miss. Retail sales were expected to slow down to 0.3%, slowed down to only negative 0.3%, slowed down to negative 0.1%. So, they also had core PPI and PPI month over month and that. So they were a little bit more sort of flat, these numbers here. So, so like you can see that sort of, if we get onto a lower time frame here, you can see this is as that news came out here. It's got smacked straight back down, and Aussie bought straight back up despite the news. Well, strong sort of US dollar news. And I'll flip over to DXY in a moment so you can sort of see the impact of that. But, this to me is sort of showing that it's hovering. It's just, anything that's thrown down, strong US data, bang, put it down. Well, people are just going to buy it straight back up. And you can see it's at that same level, which is creating a little sort of short-term support for us here as well. So if you have a look at how it's reacted previously once it's hit these zones, I mean, these are the last times that it was up around sort of, above 65, the 65 handle, and it's whack, whack, and, it's just really been knocked down. I mean, even this last attempt 2 weeks ago, just prior to the RBA, I mean, it dropped off, well, say it's sort of like 160 points. And now the fact that this time we've come back up, we've obviously sort of tried to go through a couple of times, we've rejected, rejected, rejected. It's just still consolidating around this zone here. So, provided that it can sort of stay above these wicks on the 4 hour, so above, what have we got here? Sort of 83 and change, 64, 83 and change. I would say there's a chance that they could sort of definitely come back down here and consolidate for a little bit longer. But I would say that sort of like if you put up a little box around this zone here and sort of say, hey, look, if we get a sort of close above 65.20, that's good for your confirmation to move to the top side. So above here, we do have a little bit of resistance. Obviously, we've got the sort of the big horizontal, which is around that 6580 to 6600. We could have potentially what could be top side of this sort of rising sort of channel resistance as well. So yeah, I think sort of like, it may have a little bit of tough time sort of going through the top side here. So I wouldn't really, I mean, you could, if you're really sort of bold, sort of drag out something, like this for a measured move. I don't think this will be the case though. Unless we get a complete meltdown on, US dollar, which I'll sort of flip to the equivalent move of this in a moment. I don't think this is going to really power through here. I mean, if it can shoot through here, there's a chance that you could get some blow off with some stops, because I imagine you get quite a few stops around this area as well. But I would say certainly if we get a large move up to 6600, I will be sort of banking some profits and waiting for a little bit of a pullback, looking for a new base, and then to sort of jump back on again and look for this sort of range in around this sort of 6600. But for the here and now, the fact that it's sort of pushed up to the top, if we grab, actually not this one, no, if we grab the fib, drag this back out, because obviously the move's extended a little bit out now, we can see sort of as it did come back down from when it made its new peak, pushed down past the 23, that's still a very positive sign. So as I said, if we get like closes, no, I'll leave that at the wick. If that's a little breakout box that I'm looking for, a close above 65.20, I would say that's good to sort of add to positions of that to potentially sort of be targeting the high 65s. If we do get a close to the downside though, I think sort of we'll see a bit of a continued sort of pullback. But again, this is where we could sort of be looking for something. If we get a close underneath this box, so underneath 64.80, a bit of a push down here around that sort of 64.50, which we can see has previously been a bit of a resistance zone, 64.36 to 50, and then sort of look to sort of have another shot to move up here. And still from a sort of technical standpoint, if we have a look at this through here, this is still, it's not, I mean, it's not ideal, but as we've seen with these other breakout moves, Aussie's been rallying off the 61% mark. So, it certainly doesn't mean that it's dead. But I would say to sort of confirm further gains, we want to see that close above 65.20. Flip across onto DXY. I have to admit, I do like keeping all these previous lines on there just because, it's just like, oh, look, there was a call and that was the play. And, it's nice. It tells a story, but it does get a little confusing after a while. So I will sort of clean a few of these bits and pieces up. But, we've got that nice rollover action that we called. We've got the sort of breakdowns. Like, these are all decent. But so this was the call after this break here that we thought, look, potentially, if you drag out these highs to these highs, you could sort of go, okay, well, if it's going to rally, if it's going to stop, where might it stop? And obviously, this would be, if this was to be a channel, it would come down here. So, what have we got? We've got between, a couple of cents is what we missed off that. So if we can drag this one up here, if we chop off the bottom wicks here, this pretty much gives us a nice sort of completion of the a falling support, which could potentially work out to be a channel support. So as I said, we had the strong sort of US data overnight, and you can sort of see how US dollars sort of reacted from that. If I get rid of this for 1 second, you can see there's a large wick up here where it tried to rally and got knocked back down. This zone where it clipped into, as you can see if you drag it back over here, is what we've marked out. It's the bottom side of this previous sort of range that it sort of had for a short period on the way up. So again, there's part of the market that, we're buyers here, so that's a support. So, it's going to be resistance, and you can see, bang, it got smacked back down from that zone. They had the data out afterwards, of course, and, that was quite positive, as I said, for the US dollar. So that sort of obviously sort of overcame that bit. So as this sort of rallies up, basically, firstly, this is the measured move that would take Aussie through to that next big zone, I would say. If we see that sort of this channel doesn't come into play, and we see basically what would be channel, and then just a break and capitulation, and so just a complete breakdown to the downside here, I would say that that's what's going to be sort of getting a lot of these larger runs on the other markets. But of course, that has to happen first before we sort of see that on the corresponding pairs. So it's always decent to sort of plan out for these things, but it doesn't mean that it's necessarily happening. So take this off for now because obviously at the moment it's sort of rallying up. So the points that I'm looking at for potential sort of if it does continue, like obviously we'll wait for it to open, but if we jump onto these ones here, so this zone obviously has played its part. If it goes through here, well, other sort of sections that we're looking for potentially would be a retest of this zone over here. So we can see that, previously this was quite a strong support. This is after NFP. It's a point that it rallied off from. So we got the first touch here, got smacked back down. If that negates this, i.e. sort of goes through it, then we're looking for a touch up of this line along here. Again, these are sort of price levels, so whether this happens here or happens here, well, it's obviously not going to happen here, but anywhere along this zone kind of thing would be the next point where I'd expect market to sort of either go bang and then come down here, up here and down. And again, so if it goes up through this zone as well, then we could say that possibly this channel is sort of what they're sort of trading off, which is a more sort of like straightforward form. It's got form with the breakdown and that. It's not like as I said, like these things where it's just sort of capitulates and just goes boom. That's just stops being hidden, irrational sort of trading. When you see these things sort of like really sort of follow structure, it's a lot easier, obviously, as you saw with this one here, and sort of predicting sort of where it may stop. That you can sort of have an idea about where to sort of start to sort of add to or lighten your positions and so on. So if we get a push further past this lot as well, if it does come, I imagine a run this sort of course up, you would definitely get some sort of pushback at this zone, as you saw with this one here. Hit it, it came back. Then second effort, if it goes through, this one will hit it, it'll come back. Could sort of find a little bit of rally, and then we could sort of be getting a push up over here, and then a bigger move to the downside. So they're the three sort of areas in which I'm sort of looking for in terms of sort of what US dollar might be doing. Obviously, this one would still be seeing some sort of reaction from the downside here. There are a few things that sort of support this. Obviously, we've got the RSI sort of turning up from the downside here. This is on the 4 hour. And also just structurally, you'd expect it to sort of have some sort of retest of these levels. So, I think sort of there's no need to sort of jump in too quickly. Again, another thing is as well, people that sort of miss these first moves, generally they don't, like they say, there's no easy money with it all. So there's a good opportunity, as we've seen numerous times. I mean, look at how many times it's made a new low and rip back up. New low, rip back up. People that sort of like miss this bit and then go, oh yeah, I'm going to make money. That's where they're going to make money, because you've got to say which direction's the pain trade. Ultimately, if you zoom out, well, pain trade is still moving down, because you've got a lot of people that sort of like were trying to buy US dollar to sort of keep it on going. But in the short term here and now, which is what the timeframes that I generally trade, there's a lot more pain probably to sort of get the people that are sort of got short here, drag it back up here. Anybody that was long from these areas up here, they're sort of holding hope, and then they sort of, they might be trying to average down whatever, and then smack them down the next time. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see some short-term sort of US dollar strength just while the market sort of sorts itself out. But ultimately, I think the three outcomes I'm looking for are further downside with US dollar, at least in the sort of short to medium term. Flip across to gold. Jump on this gold chart. So with gold, we saw that touch up of that 70 zone. This is what we marked out the other week. Obviously, sort of unable to sort of close above. Again, that strong US data is sort of what got it happening. So, we're coming back down to this sort of larger, sort of what I've sort of called a bit of a range play earlier. As you can see, it's a little bit thicker than the other ones. It was previously the 23%. So at the moment, it's trying to sort of hold. The RSI is tipping down. So, I wouldn't be surprised again, sort of with that US dollar strength or short-term US dollar strength, that we see a little bit of a deeper sort of pullback. with gold here. If I was to sort of drag something out here, it's nothing that really sort of takes my fancy. You could kind of do this. I'm not a big fan of it because it cuts this off. So this is just an idea of where we could be sort of looking for a little bit further of a pullback. Certainly, we're just going to have to wait to see what US dollar does on its open. So to sort of try and pick sort of whether they are going to try and sort of push it up. If they are going to push it up, how far, yada yada. But certainly, I think that we could be looking for a little bit of a further pullback. If we were looking on this here, so you can see it tried to rally off the 38. So, I mean, obviously there's part of the market saying, yes, okay, we're happy to give it a go. But yes, if we take out that wick, then I'll probably be looking, maybe a sort of touch up of this rising support could be offering something in the short term. But again, probably want to sort of see it base a little bit more, like we're sort of seeing with these sections here, or even these sort of sections through here to get that sort of big push up. So I won't be jumping into gold. Won't be jumping into gold too soon. Just at least through this session. I think it's either got to sort itself out sideways a little bit first. If we sort of like dragged a little bit of a box here, potentially if we sort of jump down onto the 1 hour. And call it something like this. I'd like to put this one here because it does look like it's trying to hold here, but obviously we had this little push down, so I think it's safer bet on the downside. I'm still looking for long positions, but certainly if it breaks below these wicks, so 55, if we get a close underneath 56, I reckon that'd be an idea for looking a little bit lower, maybe, I said around that sort of 50 level. To sort of get long. On the alternative side of that, if we get a close above 64, I think that could be a good time. We've got a little bit of sort of congestion going on over here. So yeah, realistically, like this one, when we had congestion here and then it popped up, I think a close above sort of 65 to be on the safe side, we could be sort of seeing a attempt back up to sort of like, 72, 73, that sort of area where we know it was a bit of a resistance zone. So put a little alert here. All right, excellent. So yeah, I'm not jumping into gold anytime too quickly. Cool. Flip across, have a look at copper. Copper's through this zone. So this is the big one that I've been mentioning sort of, pretty much every single video with it. It keeps grinding higher, and this bodes well for Aussie, bodes well for basically all risk. Because obviously sort of like, if prices in copper are going up, well, that means people are sort of obviously trying to expand a little bit with their sort of manufacturing. And if we're sort of starting to break and hold above these zones, like if you go back over here, you can see it's happened before. Like this big explosion out the top side here, like people got very excited here, and then obviously subsequently bang bang, smack back down. What we're seeing here is a little bit more of a realistic, like, obviously smack back down, but it's grinding, and, you can see it's really sort of trying to sort of take out and clear those previous highs. So, as I said, this was that negative divergence that we saw on the 1 hour, which is a little bit of a fake out of this channel, the main sort of 4 hour channel. So I would be surprised if, wouldn't be surprised if this could actually be the start of something a little bit larger. 380 is a very strong sort of point for me for confirmation of further upside gains. But I think that's going to spark a lot of interest in the market if we can get up around this sort of a 380 zone. So yeah, certainly looking a lot better at the moment. If we flip onto the 4 hour, we can see that sort of, look, it's even broken out, had a back test, and it's still continuing to go. I mean, you've seen how sort of this can trade. It can just go bang and fall straight over. And particularly if we get that little rally on the US dollar, then, that is certainly a possibility. But for the moment in that, it's looking very strong. I mean, the RSI's only cooled off just a little bit here. So it's a nice little sort of consolidation just for a potential another sort of swing up to the top side here. So that's looking a lot better. And as I said, that bodes well for the Aussie. Have a look at China. as it continues to sort of break down a little bit. And this is a good example, actually. This is on the 4 hour here of these things. So this is that range that we sort of drew up the other week, and you can see how the support resistance works very well here. I mean, obviously it's just going broken and it just melted down, went through that main sort of, that's on the daily falling resistance. But you can see this break here came up to the cent pretty much, tipped on this bit, and then bang, rejected back down again. So as I said, I'm very happy to sort of see this finally breaking, because this has been a very long period. As I said, this is 3 months, what I dubbed the Great China Grind. Obviously, sort of it's finding support on these lower levels, which we saw were sort of like, the wick lows of way back in, what's this, September. And you can see a little bit of a tight zone through this area here previously. So, was resistance, was support. Now we're back here. It's trying to act as support again. A break of this one here, and we're going down to that price target. First price target, I should say. Obviously, we're sort of looking a little bit lower, but this is the sort of main play that we get here. So this is very sort of, obviously, it's, again, China's not part of the DXY, but you're seeing the same sort of moves here. So we've come down, we've had this little rally attempt, and there's no reason why this can't now just go bang and absolutely melt down to the bottom side here. Of course, these things could sort of rally a little bit more, but you can see the RSI is already sort of turning even just after this one little sort of push back up here, grab a little bit more liquidity, retouch the bottom side of this here, and then bang. So look, it could certainly still come up. You know what I mean? Anything can happen. But I think if we could take out that wick, that's confirmation. We're going to see quite a nice long candle to sort of match this one here to the downside. And we're going to see sort of something, here, bang, and then it's going to, I mean, this is a very crudely drawn one, but that's kind of the move that I'd be looking for if we can take out this wick, which obviously sort of comes down pretty much. I mean, depends where you want to put this, bang, or just from here. Doesn't really matter. The point's still the same, downside push. So yeah, all right, that's it from me this morning.